If they ever take over Taiwan, that will be a disaster.
I think that'll happen under Joe Biden. Do you think so?
Well, so then we should be talking about like Kirk Campbell and Jake Sullivan, like people who might be working for the Biden administration, some things they've said. And it does seem...
What are some examples? And who are these people?
Okay, so Jake Sullivan was the National Security Advisor to Vice President Biden. Biden wants him as the National Security Advisor. And he talked about how like he considers China's rise like one of his great successes. He was working for that. And he and Kirk Campbell, penned an editorial in Foreign Affairs where they talk about... well, like keeping the status quo with Taiwan, for instance. And China has promised to invade Taiwan.
Yeah. They're doing beaching drills.
Yeah, and they normally, like every year, there's like this message about peaceful reunification. They removed peaceful this year.
Violent reunification.
So, what happens when the status quo is changed by the Chinese Communist Party invading Taiwan? What are they going to say about that? Kirk Campbell was also behind one of the biggest foreign policy failures of the U.S. since like the fall of Saigon with the Scarborough Shoal incident.
In 2012. What was that?
So the Scarborough Shoal, we actually went there. We can tell that story later. It's like this reef kind of near the Philippines. It's very important to local Filipino fishermen.
It's in the South China Sea, and originally it was kind of a place where Filipino fishermen, Vietnamese fishermen, Chinese fishermen, they could all go and fish in the place. It was claimed by several different countries, including the Philippines and China.
Yeah, but then in 2012, China sends in its Coast Guard and basically occupies the shoal. Kirk Campbell leads the U.S. delegation because the Philippines are a treaty ally with the U.S.
We have a mutual defense pact with them, so this might trigger that, right? That
yeah,
they came
if they come to blows.
You know.
It looked like they were going to come to blows.
Whoa.
And so they work out this deal where, the Chinese will leave and the Philippine side will leave, and that'll be fine. Well, the Philippine forces leave. The Chinese forces stay.
Yeah,
and the U.S. did nothing.
Under Trump?
No, this was 2012 under Obama.
Oh, that's right. Wow.
And this sent shockwaves throughout the Asia-Pacific because suddenly this was like all of these other countries realizing if the U.S. will turn its back on a mutual defense ally, what's going to happen to us? So Thailand began moving closer to the Chinese Communist Party, Philippines, South Korea. We also lost South Korea when we were putting in the THAAD missile defense system, and China freaked out about that and began a huge economic warfare against South Korea. No support from the U.S.
We were both, Luke and I were in South Korea, and there were people protesting the THAAD defense system.
Yeah,
I mean, it was controversial within South Korea.
That is true. Yeah. That is definitely true. But so this was like devastating for the image of the U.S. All throughout the Asia-Pacific.
That was Obama.
That was under Obama, and specifically this agreement was negotiated by...
For a guy who loved war, you'd think he'd have done something.
I mean, supposedly somebody said, we're not going to go to war over a bunch of rocks.
Was that Kirk?
It might have been
I think
Kirk
it was
Campbell.
him who said
That's
that.
insane.
So, but like the wider geopolitical effect it had
was disastrous for the U.S.
It was terrible, and it allowed China to basically have free reign within the South China Sea.
In general, I don't think they were prepared for that. I think that totally rewrote their timeline of what they could do. Because after that, that's when you see them really building up...